Hi everybody, welcome back to Let's Play Dragon Age Origins. I don't feel like we've actually progressed anything, so I don't know how much bants our party is going to have, but we can do some equipping for sure. I should probably put those bits on Liliana before I forget them. I just wish she'd not keep unequipping them. Oh, that's Restriction Warrior. Wasn't expecting that. Oh, well that's... Ah, of course, because I didn't really want this bow, it just happened to be one that I could actually wield. Hard to know which is better or worse, really. I'll take rapid aim. I barely use it anyway. Oh, I forgot you had a bow. Which is probably good, because that means you don't keep unequipping it all the time. Well, I don't like any of this stuff is any good, does it? I mean, they're not significantly better or worse, I wouldn't have said. Pros and cons with that. I think we can get rid of all this stuff. I can't imagine any of that being better for anybody. Pretty similar. He does loads of electricity damage. That's a great plan. Huh, that's interesting. That shouldn't work, should it? Restriction Alistair.
Oh, how dear of you.
Unexpected. Thank you.
Oh, how dear of you.
Oh, marvelous. Most kind.
Well, I think that's it. I think that's our inventory sorted. I should probably put the named items in the box just in case I want them back. That said, they're really just not good enough. Am I ever going to want that? I don't think so. Am I ever going to want that? No. No. Why don't I just sell them? Don't really understand how good or bad that is, so I probably will keep it. And that's it, everything else can go.
If there's anything I can do for you, I'm sure you'll be...
Well, the inventory wasn't very difficult. I've hardly got any runes to bother faffing with. Yeah, none of them particularly good. How did I miss Ruby? I don't know. Well, this might be a very short episode.
Do you realise that you've been smiling for hours now?
Have I?
Since the last time you and that fool Alistair shot glances at each other, in fact. He must be pleasant enough in bed, for surely I cannot imagine anyone enduring his conversation.
Yeah, actually, we got on pretty well in that department, thank you.
Ooh, touchy, are we? Isn't this what friends are supposed to do? 'Tis a bit sickening to watch you two, but I imagine it at least takes your mind from our situation. Have it your way.
Oh no! She's so fucking flighty, is Morrigan. It's so difficult
What comes, my friend?
to actually get along with her.
So, full of questions, are you? What comes, my friend? We're in camp, so 'tis as good a time as any.
Oh, sorry, Morrigan. Equally, yeah, I don't think it would help telling her all that stuff.
You called. I am hardly surprised.
Do you find Ferelden very strange?
To put it lightly, no one has a place here. Your farmers wish to be merchants. The merchants dream of being nobles, and the nobles become warriors. No one is content to be who they are.
I think we've heard that before.
Very well. Speak, then. Then I suggest we move on. As you wish.
I still got it.
Oh. That was a success? Are you sure?
Weren't you watching? She could barely restrain herself. Might as well rest up while I can. You ready to go?
Yeah, I'd just like to know more about you.
What about?
Maybe another time then.
All right. All right then. Hey, Warden, you gotta hear this one. This human walks into a tavern, and there's an elf there, and she says As she says.
Spit it out, Ogren.
Oh yeah, I remember now.
Fucking idiot.
Ass chaps.
Ass chaps? What the fuck are you talking about, Ogren?
Ass chaps.
What's on your mind?
Have you changed your mind about Alistair and me yet?
I have watched you for a time, and perhaps I was wrong. There seems to be something special between the two of you. He seems less guarded when in your company, allows himself to relax, and he seems genuinely happy.
Well, I'm happy with him.
I think I was too harsh in my judgment before, and I am sorry.
That's alright. Apology accepted.
What you have may not last forever. Death and duty may part you, but love's worthiness is not diminished because of that. I should have seen this before. Instead, you learn to cherish every precious moment that you spend together, knowing that it may be the last. And for those of us watching, well, it brings warmth to these old bones to know that something so beautiful can be found in the midst of chaos and strife. What's on your mind? It is no trouble.
Something I can help with? Yes? What's on your mind?
I think we've heard all this before. I heard that in Orlais minstrels are often spies.
Where did you hear this?
I read it in a history book.
And did you not think that this could be historical fact and no longer true? Not all minstrels are spies. Most are just singers and storytellers, but some of them are what we call bards.
And the Vards are spies.
Bards are minstrels and more. Spies, as you say. Some say there is a bard order, but I don't think this is true. Many bards work alone or in small groups, doing the bidding of a patron who pays for their services. If there is an organization behind it all, no one knows who they are.
So what sort of services does a bard offer?
What do you think? They infiltrate, steal, sometimes assassinate? It depends on the bard. In Orlais, there is much rivalry amongst the highborn. They fight over land, influence, and the favor of the Empress. But they cannot do this openly because it is impolite, and in public, they wear smiling faces and pretend to be civil. In secret, they plot and scheme to destroy each other. It is a game completely meaningless to anyone but its players.
Oh, you seem to know quite a bit about these bards.
And I shouldn't I, after having spent most of my adult life as one? You've guessed as much, I'm sure. But does it really matter what I was? What's past is past.
But why were you living as a cloistered sister in rural Ferelden?
I found myself in Ferelden and sheltered from bad weather in the Chantry. And when the storm passed, I just did not want to leave. I like to see the Maker brought me here. Something I can help with? Yes? What's on your mind?
Well, why did you decide to come to Ferelden? You can tell me.
My mother was from Denerim, and I consider myself a Ferelden. Mother served an Orlesian noblewoman who lived here when Orlais ruled. When Orlais was defeated and the common folk began to resent the presence of any Orlesian, the lady returned to Orlais. She took my mother with her. I was born in Orlais and did not set foot in Ferelden till much later. Mother was always telling me stories of her homeland. I think she missed it.
Can I ask what happened to your mother?
Mother died when I was very young. Lady Cecily let me stay with her, I had no one else. She was quite old then, and she had me study music and dance to entertain her. It is unfair that I have more memories of Cecily than my mother.
What was Cecily like?
She was an elderly lady, very refined and proper. She had impeccable manners and taste, more so than a lot of Orlesian ladies. Cecily was also kind. My mother was unmarried and with child. It was scandalous, and Cecily had every right to turn my mother out. She didn't. Strangely, the only thing I really remember of Mother was her scent. She kept dried flowers in her closet amongst her clothes. Small white Ferelden wildflowers with a sweet fragrance. Mother called them Andrastis Grace. They were very rare in Orlais. But enough about that. Let us move on.
Yeah, I've already given you them.
Something I can help with? Yes? What's on your mind?
Do you miss anything about Orlais?
I miss Val-Royeaux. Unlike other cities where the people are the lifeblood and the character, Val-Royeaux was her own person, and her people little more than decorations. There was always music in Val-Royeaux, streaming from the many windows, quiet refrains and triumphant choruses, and always, floating above that all, the chant, coming from the Grand Cathedral. It was magnificent.
That sounds wonderful.
Oh, it would take me a day or two to talk about the many splendors of Orlais, her golden fields, her lush meadows. Of course, there are good things and bad things about Orlais, like anywhere else. Sometimes I miss it dearly, and sometimes I'm glad I'm rid of it. And you will laugh at this, but I miss the fine things I had in Orlais.
Oh, what sort of things?
Dresses, fine dresses and furs. And shoes, of course. One can't mingle with nobility with bad shoes, you see. Orlais is very fashionable. Almost ridiculously so. But the shoes. Living with those ridiculous trends was worth it for the shoes.
Oh, I love shoes.
When I left Orlais, the fashion was shoes with delicate tapered heels and embellishments in the front. A ribbon, perhaps, or embroidery. In soft colors, of course. It was spring.
Oh, sounds lovely.
I had my eye on a pair my shoemaker was working on. It was covered in pale blue silk with amber beads on the toe. The shoes made in Orlais were exquisite. Not at all like these clunky fur-lined leather boots you have in Ferelden. Ugh, just look at them.
Like fucking Ugg boots, right?
They're sturdy shoes, but sometimes a girl just wants to have pretty feet. Oh, I could talk about shoes all day, but we have things to do, don't we? Something I can help with? Yes? What's on your mind?
Oh, it sounds like we've got through Leliana.
Of course I do. I love stories far too much to keep them to myself. Everyone should be able to benefit from them, I think.
Sorry, I thought she was going to say no. Ah, that essentially is a no, because I've heard all
Which
these.
one? It will come to you soon, I'm sure.
Okay, pretty much. Yeah, we have completed Leliana. Sorry, I was expecting to get straight there.
What is your desire? All right, but I get to stare at you luridly while you do so.
What's your opinion on the Dalish?
I know little enough of the Dalish other than the fact that my mother was one, or so I was told. She had fallen in love with an elven woodcutter and accompanied him back to the city, leaving her clan behind for good. And there, of course, the woodcutter died of some filthy disease and my mother was forced into prostitution to pay off his debts. All is tale in the book.
Pretty much. Was the woodcutter your father?
How should I know? My mother was a whore, as you'll recall. None of the other elven boys in the whorehouse knew their fathers. I was not so unusual. I didn't know my mother either, of course. She died giving birth to me. My first victim, as it were. We were all raised communally by the whores. It was a happy enough existence, ignoring the occasional beating. Until eventually I was sold to the crows. I brought a good price, so I hear.
That's pretty depressing. I mean, you and Alistair could actually get on over that. I wonder if they'll have banter about that. Still, you're oddly cheerful about it all.
It could have been much worse. Shall I tell you about what happened to the other whorehouse boys who did not fetch a decent price with the crows? Surely your life has not been so idyllic. People like you and I are not the product of happy lives of contentment, after all.
Yeah, you can fucking say that again.
My original point is that my mother's Dalish nature was always a point of fascination for me. Through all the years of my crow training, the one thing of my mother's that I possessed was a pair of gloves. They were of Dalish make, I knew that much, and beautiful. I had to keep them hidden, of course, as we were not allowed such things. Eventually, they were discovered, and I never saw them again.
I actually know the sort of gloves you speak of.
I suppose you would. I'd always wanted another. In fact, I ran off to join a clan once when they drew near Antiva City, thinking that there I would find my true calling. Naturally, the reality did not live up at all to the fantasies I had constructed as a boy, staring at those gloves. But such is life. Come, enough talk of the Dalish. Let us move on. What is your desire? All right, but I get to stare at you luridly while you do so.
Tell me more about your adventures.
My adventures? I'm hardly an old man just returned from across the ocean, am I? Should I shake my fist at nearby children while I talk about the good old days?
No. No, you certainly talk like you've had adventures.
Falling down a flight of stairs is an adventure. Falling into someone's bed, also an adventure. I am assuming what you're looking for are professional anecdotes. Let's see, my second mission ever for the Crows was a bit intriguing. I was sent to kill a mage who had been meddling in politics.
Yeah, I want at least challenge rating 1 encounters, obviously. How would a mage meddle in politics?
How should I know? I got the impression it involved sex, but then I get that impression about most everything. Odd, really. As it turned out, the mage in question was quite a delightful young woman. Long, divine legs, as I recall. I caught her in a carriage on her way to escape to the provinces. After I killed her guard, she got down on her hands and knees and begged for her life. Rather aptly, I might add. So I joined her in the carriage for the night and left the next morning.
Oh, and she didn't try to kill you?
Well, yes, twice, actually. Then she decided to try and use me instead. The woman had actually convinced me to speak to the Crows on her behalf. What can I say? I was young and foolish at the time. Then, as I was kissing her goodbye to return to Antiva City, she slipped on the threshold and fell backwards out of the carriage. Broke her neck. Shame, really, but at least it happened quickly.
Oh, so you didn't actually kill her?
Not actually, no. I was a bit unimpressed by the development at first. Then I found out that she had told the driver to take her to Janellen instead. She had planned to lose me in the provinces. I would have looked very foolish to the Crows. As it was, my master was very impressed that I had done such a fine job of making it look like an accident. The circle of magi was unaware of foul play, and everyone was happier all around.
Except for the mage.
I suppose, but she was dead. She didn't need to be happy. It was after that when I learned that one needn't let a pretty face go to your head. Professionalism was key. That's my moral of the day, you see.
No, almost everything is about getting sex. Are you trying to tell me you never mix business with pleasure anymore?
Well, there is you. But I'll point out that you did have to capture me and tie me up first. Every rule has its exception. Now that I've mentioned tying me up in that context, do we have extra rope about?
I think that would break Alistair's heart.
What is your desire? All right, but I get to stare at you luridly while you do so. Again, well now, what might interest you, I wonder? Shall I describe the stages involved with Lanthrax poisoning? I watched a man go through all 7 once.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Haha, you have rather macabre tastes, I see. I like that.
Let's see. How about the largest battle I ever took part in? That would have been the slaughter of Prince Osrine. Did you hear of that down in these parts?
No, I doubt it.
Prince Osrine was fourth in line to the throne, you see. He started off as 11th, but worked his way up the old-fashioned method by inheriting control of an entire Crocel from his grandfather. After assassinating his way through the royal family, the king hired 3 other cells to take down Prince Osrine once and for all. I was in one of those cells.
What, is this sort of thing common in Antiva?
Antivan royalty is very much bound up in the crows. You wouldn't want it run by a bunch of commoners, after all, would you? And this means they get involved in politics quite often. This particular fight nearly bankrupted the nation, I understand. It almost ended up putting a crow on the throne, a commoner. But that's a whole different story. I played a very small part.
What did you do?
My part in the entire battle was taken up trying to reach Princess Verina, who had thrown in with her brother. I killed about 11 of her guards personally before I got knocked out of a window. I landed in a river and nearly drowned. I was fished out by some urchins who robbed me blind. Made off with my boots, too. At least they didn't cut my throat. And that was my part in history.
You got robbed by urchins?
I had to find my way back to the safe house, bruised and naked, and thankful to be alive. But there you go. Tale told. Let's be off before I tell more embarrassing stories, huh?
That was a good story.
What is your desire? All right, but I get to stare at you luridly while you do so. Well, the only one that's really worth telling is the story of the mission right before I came to Ferelden. But no, I would rather not. I shouldn't have said anything.
Oh, don't be a tease. Come out with it.
Perhaps another day. I apologize.
Oh. Yeah, I'll butter him up with some presents. Just Alistair.
Look, before we go any further, I want to say something. I appreciate that you brought me to see my sister, and that you were there to talk me down after we left. You're a true friend, and I love you. I just wanted to tell you that.
I love you too.
Well, now that that's out of the way, something you need, my dear? Of course.
I think we've covered all of that.
Something you need, my dear? Well, we're in camp. Now's as good a time as any to talk, right?
Let's go to sleep.
What can I say? Your wish is my command.
I've pretty much already done this. And at least we get some new tunes, get the tune back. And I'll, oh, we haven't spoken to all of them. We will call an end to the episode here. Thank you for watching. Come back for the next part of Dragon Age Origins. The Legend of Calenhad, Chapter 1. Prior to the crowning of King Calenhad, Ferelden was little more than a collection of independent Arlings and Turnirs that warred on each other constantly over petty matters. Calenhad was born in 510 Exalted Age as the third son of a high-ever merchant and on hard times. He was eventually sent to a distant cousin, a poor young knight named Sir Fornahan, who made Calenhad his squire and dog handler. As the tale goes, Sir Fornahan and his squire became caught up in one of the Wars of Unity at the time. Arl Merdin was a strong but generally disliked man who was making a bid for kingship. Fornahan's own lord, a young fool of an Arl named Tenador, no older than Calenhad, was besieged by Merdin's forces at his castle, today known as West Hill. When Merdin called Tenador out to parley, the young Arl asked for a volunteer from among the squires, someone who could masquerade as Tenador in the parley party. Calenhad kneeled before Tenador and asked for the honour. Much to Tenador's and Sir Fornahan's disarray, Calenhad immediately identified himself to Arl Merdin. When asked by the Arl why he was here, Calenhad explained that he'd been asked to take the place of his lord. The Arl said that he had planned to kill Tenador. Was Calenhad willing to die in his lord's place as well? Calenhad impressed Merdin and his allies by saying he was. Merdin offered Calenhad a place as his own squire, but Calenhad refused, stating that if Merdin had planned on betraying the right of parley, he was no man of honour. Merdin's allies laughed at that, and Merdin himself conceded that Calenhad had a point. He allowed Calenhad to return to the castle safely and launched his final assault. During the assault, both Tenedor and Fornahan were killed, but Calenhad found himself in one-on-one combat with Earl Merdin. In front of all of Merdin's allies, Calenhad defeated the Earl and commanded that he call off his armies. The Earl asked Calenhad who he professed to serve now, if both his knight and his lord were dead, to which Calenhad replied that he would do as his honour bade him to, for he had nothing else. "You are not a man known for your honour," Calenhad said, "but I believe you wish to be. You allowed me to live once, and so now I do the same for you. Perhaps if more of our people lived by honour, we would learn to trust each other long enough to live together." And with that, Calenhad withdrew his sword. "I am humbled by your words," Earl Merdin told Calenhad, dropping to one knee. To his allies he shouted that he knew he would never be king, but he knew who should be. With that, Merdin pledged allegiance to Calenhad, who he named Tern and ruler of Tenedor's lands. From the Legend of Calenhad by Brother Heron, Chantry Scribe, 810 Blessed Age. The Legend of Calenhad Chapter 2. With the allegiance of Al Mirrodin, Calenhad began his rise to greatness. Some of Mirrodin's allies also pledged allegiance, but most thought him foolhardy. A boy commoner was to lead them and become king. Over the years that followed, however, Calenhad would prove himself worthy of Merdin's trust. With each victory, he won over more men to his command, and his reputation as a man of honour spread. Eventually, during his campaign against the lowland Bannorn, he met his most infamous friend and companion, the vaunted Lady Shaena. Calenhad married the famously beautiful daughter of Merdin, Mern, and his firm belief in the ways of the Chantry became the staple of the court. In a time when the Chantry was still new to the lands, and courts following Andraste held the majority of the power in Ferelden, Calenhad began to solidify the nation as one, in line with the other nations around it. This piety eventually won over to Calenhad those faithful in Ferelden who had been waiting for such a leader. With Lady Shaena at his side, Calenhad was unstoppable, and by 542 Exalted Age, the war for Ferelden had come to one final battle, against the collected forces of Simeon, Tern of Denerim, and the most potent nobleman in the land. Calenhad persuaded the Circle of Magi to come to his aid, as well as the Ash Warriors, and in the Battle of the White Valley, he famously defeated Tern Simeon and united the nation. During the battle, Simeon nearly killed Calenhad, but Lady Shaena intervened and took the wound for him, slaying Simeon. Calenhad was crowned king in Denerim that year, with Mern his queen, but he spent much of the months that followed nursing Lady Shaena back to health. King Calenhad's Ferelden was peaceful for a time, with the Chantry spreading quickly under the king's guidance. Everywhere the king and queen went, they were surrounded by cheering crowds. The common folk celebrated Calenhad as one of their own who had achieved the impossible, and trade opened up with many outside lands for the first time in Ferelden's existence. But, as with many such golden ages, it was not to last. From the Legend of Calenhad by Brother Heron, Chantry Scribe, 810 Blessed Age. The Legend of Calenhad, Chapter 3. Calenhad's legend tells that Lady Shaena harboured a love for her king that went beyond friendship, a love that she had kept secret out of her sense of duty and honour. When offered a love potion by a witch in disguise, a witch who would later turn out to be the vengeance-seeking sister of Earl Simeon, Lady Shaena gave in to temptation. She used the potion on Calenhad, but Queen Mairin discovered the two of them together that night, and, broken-hearted, fled Denerim to return to her father. She told Merdin everything, and he angrily threatened to revoke his support of Calenhad and begin anew the civil war. It is said that Lady Shaena felt remorseful at her manipulation of her best friend's heart, and confessed her use of forbidden magic to the court. Although her life was forfeit, Calenhad forgave Lady Shaena for what she had done, and refused to have her executed. Merdin furiously roused the other Earls against Calenhad and Lord Shaena, and it was not long before Ferelden stood on the brink of civil war once again. Against Calenhad's orders, Lady Shaena went alone to Merdin to plead for peace and plead her case, only to be found out by Merdin and slain. Angered but also saddened, Calenhad challenged Merdin to an honour duel, a fight neither of them wanted but both knew was necessary, and Merdin was slain. The death of the king's greatest ally, an important Earl, was too much for the young kingdom to bear. The other Earls would not back down in their claims against Calenhad. The threat of civil war rose once again. Calenhad went back to his wife one last time then, although none knew what he said to her, and then he simply vanished. He left with Mairin a proclamation abdicating his throne in favour of the son his queen carried in her belly, who eventually ascended to the throne as King Wayland I, the king credited with establishing the Therian dynasty, lasting to this day. Calenhad would never reappear. The legend of Calenhad himself only grew over time, as stories and sightings multiplied, even long after the point where Calenhad could possibly still be alive. Some say he disappeared into the Korcari wilds, or went to live with the dwarves, or even became a monk in a reclusive Chantry order. The Chantry named Calenhad one of the Anointed in 788 Storm Age. Calenhad's sword, Nematos, was left with Meryn and became a symbol of Ferelden kingship over the next century. Rumours of its magical powers grew, and when it was lost in the ambush that killed King Venedrin in 824 Blessed Age, it was seen as a great blow to the Therian line. Several false swords have appeared since that time, but never has the true sword resurfaced. From the Legend of Calenhad by Brother Heron, Chantry Scribe, 810 Blessed Age.